Want to extend a welcome to parents, the first teachers being honored here today. Welcome to honorees, welcome to faculty, welcome to staff and friends. This is going to be an interactive address. In the absence of technology, I'm going to periodically ask for a show of hands. Shouting out "Amen" is also acceptable. Let's warm up with an easy one. Everyone else is doing it. Why can't I? Good idea? Let's see hands. Bad idea? Sure. You learned this lesson years ago, perhaps from your parents, your grandparents, and we'll come back to this later. A year ago, I had a dilemma, an existential dilemma. I was wondering, what does it all mean? I'd been homesick the day before last year's honors convocation. I'd come the day of the convocation, but planned to go home early until I ran into Julian Herzog. He asked, "Where are you going?" I told him I really didn't feel the best and I was going home. Julian was emphatic. "You've got to go to the ceremony." Now, Dr. Herzog can be quite animated, and he was very animated at the time. I thought, okay, he's right. I had several students that were receiving recognition, and I should be there. Little did I realize that I would be the recipient of the Dad's Beaumont Award. It was a complete surprise. So since then, my question about what does it all mean has only deepened. And a salute goes out to Dr. Herzog. Does everything happen for a reason? Or do we live in a random universe? If everything happens for a reason, how does luck figure in? How does fate figure in? Is the glass half full or half empty? Does it have a bad crack and it's leaking all over the podium? After much reflection, I find that I'm an optimist, and I recognize that attitude is everything. Do you have an attitude of gratitude? Keep asking yourself, how do you learn? And from whom do you learn? Who are your teachers? Who is your next teacher? Is it the unmet friend? Is it the familiar stranger? Again, this is an honors convocation. We salute you, your teachers, and your first teachers, your parents. You are getting ready to graduate in the near future, and I want to put your achievement in perspective. I'll be using a series of vignettes to illustrate several points. Number one, as you climb the mountain, the air gets thinner. No longer will you be competing against the top 15%. Now you're going to be competing against the top 5%. But the manner in which you perform here at William Woods is a good predictor of how you will perform in graduate school and in your future employment. What are the predictors of success? Actually, there are three predictors of success that are primary predictors: IQ, SES, or socioeconomic status, also known as family income, and self-control. My mother, as most mothers do, emphasized the last one. When you don't have anything to say, smile and keep your mouth shut. IQ and social status are hard to change, but recent research indicates that self-control can be learned. Even identical twins are not identical on self-control. That tells us that something has been learned, not something that they have inherited. So there is hope for those impulsive ones among us. Now, I don't want to diminish the importance of having hope. Having hope is critical, but relying fully on hope is insufficient. For example, in military operations and birth control, good planning is essential. Number 2, say no to drugs. You are at high risk for being seduced by drugs. Now, I'm not talking about illicit substances and pharmaceutical compounds. I'm talking about being seduced by your own success, of becoming an elitist and developing a personal fable, thinking that some rules don't apply to you. I really worry about the top 5%. Very intelligent, very well-educated people, and they can do very stupid things. Everyone else is doing it. Why can't I? Very intelligent, well-educated people fell prey to this. They fell victim to greed. It led to the global economic crisis in 2008 and our current recession. Again, very intelligent, well-educated people did not have the necessary playground supervision and put the economy in the tank. They created products like credit default swaps and collateralized debt obligations, products in many respects that were designed to fail, and fail they did. How many people have had a balloon that never popped? A bubble that never burst? If you've not seen the documentary Inside Job, you need to see it. It's in our library. So what can we do? Out of chaos can come opportunity. We need to make some decisions or it will happen again. William Faulkner put it as, the past is never dead. It is not even past. All over America right now, the media reports public education is in crisis. Teachers are being fired as next year's school budgets shrink. Next fall's classroom will be more crowded. Some districts are going to 4-day weeks. The nation's public universities are in deep trouble. Do we have a crisis in education or do we have a crisis in government? Education is a perennial soft target because it is the only entity that can be held accountable. Think about the child in the center, surrounded by the family, surrounded by the community, surrounded by education. Now, which will legislators seek to hold accountable? The child, the family, the community? No, only education. Robert Reich, former Secretary of Labor during the Clinton administration, suggests an answer, and suggests the answer is for the federal government to bail out public education until state and local revenues return as the economy strengthens. After all, the government bailed out Wall Street. What our kids learn, Reich describes as America's human capital, is more important to our economy than Wall Street's financial capital. Finally, Reich suggests that we could rebalance the economy from finance, away from finance and towards people. Congress should enact a small 0.5% tax, a transfer tax on all financial deals. This might slow down Wall Street a bit, but generate $200 billion a year for our public schools and universities. In 2009, the New York Times reported that America's top 25 hedge fund managers earned an average of $1 billion each. Just $1 billion is enough to pay for 20,000 teachers. That is assuming that the average teacher earns $50,000 a year, and that's assuming a lot. Out of chaos comes opportunity. Number 3, you too can be John Wayne. Ever get nervous or stressed when you're in a meeting or presenting? What happens? You stop breathing, you talk faster, your voice gets higher. I encourage my students to start recognizing those signs of stress in situations in which they experience stress. You must practice and force yourself to take 2 deep breaths, breathe evenly, lower your voice, and slow down your speech stream. John Wayne, remember him? John Wayne? He said, if you want people to hear what you say, you talk low, you talk slow, and you don't say too much. Everything happens for a reason. If everything happens for a reason, how does luck figure in? Number 4, always consider the wisdom of smart people. I was the first one on either side of my family to attend college, but my family had the benefit of folk wisdom and the opportunity to work hard and live right. The people that taught me the most were not educated people. They were the smart people. They were the good problem solvers with a strong internal gyroscope and a clear sense of right and wrong. They did not get sucked into groupthink. Everyone else is doing it, why can't I? The best test, how do you test what groupthink is? I like to visit elementary schools about the time they are lining up and getting ready to come in from recess. Ask the questions of today that plague today's America to a group of 4th graders. They will look at you like, what? Most 4th graders are very smart people. Let's see a show of hands out there of those of you that have recently or currently involved in a close emotional relationship with a dog. You want to listen to smart dogs. My wife and I live with 3 dogs and 3 cats. All the 3 cats are from Callaway County, and their story is beyond the scope of this address today. But our oldest dog, Bretta, we adopted her when she was 8 weeks old. And for an 8-week-old, she seemed to have very long legs and very large paws. As it turns out, she is a great lab, probably a lab Great Dane mix. Now, we live on 12 acres in northern Boone County, and we've been cutting walking trails through the woods, and we walk the dogs twice a day. Our neighbor has cut additional trails and built bridges, and it's fine to wander over on his land for an extended walk. When Bretta was about a year old, we were taking our route. This route took us across one of the bridges. Bretta was a little ahead of me, and she stopped before the bridge and was barking. I looked around, I didn't notice anything, and I started to cross the bridge, but she wouldn't follow. So I scooped her up, carried her across the bridge, set her down on the other side, and she merrily scampered on her way. That evening we took the same route, and the scene was repeated. She would stop short of the bridge and was barking. I looked around, I couldn't see anything. I scooped her up, set her down on the other side, and she took off. Now, I have a master's degree in clinical psychology and a doctorate in school psychology. So I put my graduate school hat on and diagnosed a possible bridge phobia of unknown origin. I had an experienced staff member in the past with a bridge phobia, and we successfully helped her with relaxation, and systematic desensitization. But how would you do this with a dog? Relaxation is something that dogs do very well. In the meantime, I got distracted with other thoughts that were clearly on the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy, and I don't think about it until our walk the next morning. Greta gets ahead of me, I can hear her barking. By the time I reach her at the bridge, she's stopped barking. She's sitting there looking back at me, and then at the bridge, and then back at me, and then at the bridge. Dogs do have facial expressions, and they do take note of ours. Unlike wolves, dogs make eye contact. Greta was looking me in the eye like, okay, smarty pants, what you gonna do now? One side of the bridge had collapsed. She'd been trying to warn me, but I was so distracted with my higher level of thinking that I missed the obvious. Always listen to smart dogs, even when they're barking at the night sky. They are involved in inquiry. They are asking if there is intelligent life out there. And all the while, they secretly know the answer. There is no intelligent life out there. They are just like us. Richer than princes I will always be, for I had teachers that read to me. Accidents don't happen. Or was I lucky? My name ended in E. My first name, no. My last name started with E. We sat in rows alphabetically. I was placed by the windows, and when I finished work, I could raise my hand, let my teacher know that I was finished, put my work in the tray, and then I would go to the World Book encyclopedias. It seemed to be a norm. Throughout elementary school, finish your work, pick up a volume, read at your desk. There was another norm that was hugely important. After lunch, all elementary teachers read to their students for 30 to 45 minutes. That was every day, no exceptions. Something unthinkable today. But by the 6th grade, we had experienced the best of children's literature and beyond. This was in a little town called Carl Junction, Missouri, the junction of the Santa Fe and the Frisco Railroad. It was a town of 1,500 people, a mile from the Kansas border, 9 miles from Joplin, Missouri. Albert Einstein is reported to have said, if you want your children to be intelligent, read them fairy tales. If you want them to be more intelligent, read them more fairy tales. Pick a book, any book. So I moved from elementary to junior high. Teachers no longer read to us. But we did have a study hall, something unheard of today. This was 1 hour where you were involved in supervised study. My study hall was in the library with the librarian, Mrs. Height. This is where I discovered social networking. Under the guise of looking for a book, I could walk around. Hi, Karen. How's it going? Sue, nice poodle skirt. Dave, how'd you get that penny in your loafers? This was great, until the day that Mrs. Height got on my game. I saw her coming out of the corner of my eye and started staring intently at a row of books. She asked, "What are you doing?" I replied that I was looking for a special book. She asked if I needed any help in finding it. I said no, that I had just found it. I reached to the shelf and removed a book at random. "Yes, I think I found it." She asked if she could look at it. Of course. She looked at the title, Oh, very good choice. And she would be interested in monitoring my progress in this book. The book I pulled at random was Voltaire's Candide, written in 1759, also known as Optimism. She did indeed monitor my progress. Of course, I was 13 and read it from a very literal perspective, but enjoyed it immensely. But because it was satire and parody, I completely misunderstood it. However, the book chosen at random has impacted me to this day. It's a random universe. Or do things happen for a reason? Don't argue with your mother. When I was 10 years old, I had heard my mother mention that she thought that I should become a preacher. Since I had daily access to World Book encyclopedias, I decided I would research the idea. Mother was frying chicken and I walked in the kitchen and announced the fruit of my research. Mom, I'm not going to be able to become a preacher because I don't think I can manage the Latin. Mom never looked up. Sweetheart, we are Methodists and we don't use Latin. From that point on, I decided to make sure I had a solid argument when I went forward and never to argue with my mother. Years later, my father reminded me there are two theories of arguing with a woman, and neither one works. I want to leave you with those thoughts. Thank you very much. Congratulations on your honors here today.